Hello everybody, and welcome to another puzzle challenge video from chessuniversity.com. This is Ryan Murphy presenting first the solution to yesterday's puzzle and then our new puzzle for the day. And since we've passed the halfway point of the week, we are on to the medium or intermediate difficulty puzzles. And as always, it gets harder throughout the week. On the weekend, we get our hardest puzzles, and then we reset to beginner level stuff at the beginning of the next week. So, as I said in yesterday's video, this is white to play and win. White ends up getting basically an extra piece with correct play here from both sides. And the first move, which is the key thing you have to see, is the move queen to c2. And this move is very strong because it not only hits an undefended piece, the rook on b3 is not protected by any other black piece, it also threatens checkmate on h7. So it's a double attack. However, by playing queen to c2, we've also left our rook on d6 unprotected. So first, black needs to deal with mate. You can't get mated. So let's say g6, for example. And now simply if we grab on b3 and black grabs on d6, momentarily material is still equal, at least from the start of the tactic. But then after queen takes knight, because the knight was also unprotected there, white emerges with an extra bishop and is completely winning. In the game, instead, white played the move rook d7, which was also pretty good, but definitely not as strong as winning a piece. The queen took on c4, bishop went to a2, and then queen takes f1 was a very unfortunate way for white to get mated. Simply they overlooked the threat that queen c4 had, which was the attack on this one here. So yeah, very quick turn of events actually, and change of fortune for white, because white was winning. But goes to show you, blitz chess is tough. You miss one move and the game can turn just like that. So let's now move on to our puzzle of the day. That's this one here with white to play and checkmate in 3. So only the mate in 3 is accepted as correct. White's completely winning. There's several different forced checkmates, many of which are much longer than 3 moves. But there's one very efficient way to put the game away quickly. So that's what we're looking for here. If you want to post your solution for rewards points on the Chess University website, follow the link in the YouTube description and check it out. Make your comment there. But yeah, I will get back to the start of this game to show how it developed. This came from an online tournament game played last weekend, and it was played between a 2000 and a 1700 rated player, at least for online ratings. So this game began e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5 check, pretty trendy nowadays, bishop to d7, takes, and castles. Yeah, this is all pretty normal. White has several ways of playing this. There's plans where you go for d4 quickly, there's c3 and d4, and you can even play with c4 in some positions and try to get a Maroczy bind, trying to grab the d5 square. Knight gf6 attacking the pawn, d3. This isn't really an ambitious way to play the opening because now white kind of forgoes any of the quick d4 plans, because then the pawn on e4 would be hanging. So here, more logical move would be rook e1, or even queen e2. Both have the same point of protecting the pawn, while leaving the d-pawn fluid so it can play to d4 later. So d3 is okay, but not very ambitious, and black's probably comfortable now. So knight c3, bishop g7, rook e1, both sides just getting the pieces out. Yeah, here h6 would have been a very reasonable move, anticipating that white wants to play queen d2 next, which would prevent this idea in the future. And after the move h6, this bishop would have to make a decision if it goes back here. Now black can play a move like moving this knight out of the way, like knight h5 is definitely worth considering here. And if the bishop goes back here, obviously black will be happy to win the pair of bishops. So the bishop should go back this way. And then black will get ready with moves like e6 and eventually try to play for the move d5 in the center. Try to go like d5, d4 with reasonable play. Okay, anyway, none of that happened. Black just played rook e8 and then queen d2. h3, not really sure what h3 is trying to do. b6, also don't know what b6 is trying to do, to be honest. Both sides are just kind of making quick moves, I imagine. This was a 10-minute game. So bishop h6, trying to trade off the fianchettoed bishop. Black doesn't want that to happen, so they've dropped back. And now g4, which to me just looks like a very weakening move. It doesn't really have many good concrete follow-ups. g5 is not a move you really ever want to play unless it wins a piece. And in this case, it doesn't. So yeah, g4 just weakens the king for no particular reason. Queen to c7, rook a to d1. White puts the pieces in the center. You would think that white's going to play a move like d4 in the near future. And that should be their idea, but they have to watch out because of the dangerous potential of the bishop on h8. All right. Rook c to d8 was played by black. Queen to c1. Probably white was afraid of some d5 in the near future, though there's actually nothing immediate here, so they probably just played this move purely on reaction without actually calculating. Yeah, if white wants to be consistent with all this pawn pushing they did on the king side with h3 and g4, they really probably need to get f4, f5 in, or something like this. So moving the knight from f3, maybe knight h2, knight h4, not sure which, to go for this idea is at least consistent with the previous moves, and probably should have been played. All right, a6 played by black. Black now begins expanding on the queen side, which is what they should have been doing. And d4 takes. And here black is actually doing pretty well, because as a general rule, when you push pawns near your king, you don't want the center to open up. So playing g4 and then like transposing into like a open Sicilian kind of pawn structure doesn't make the most sense. Yeah, should be actually quite good for black. And here the move b5 would have been strong, with ideas of playing for b4. Also, this maneuver, knight b6 or knight e5 into c4 would have been kind of interesting. And black would have very typical Sicilian play. White doesn't really have an easy attack, so black should be doing quite well here. Anyway, white played f4 after knight e5, which is, like I said, f4 is the kind of move that white wants to get in. It helps get their attack going. Now knight c6, takes, rook e3. Not really sure what that move does, to be honest. e5 played. E5 is not the most prudent move in the position. Again, I still like going b5 with the ideas of playing b4 and trying to win this pawn on e4 even in some cases. So I think b5 is the way that black's just supposed to play here. Just start pushing on the queen side. f5 played, and now it's very unclear, double-edged. White has their attack going, and black opens up the center, which is pretty principled here. And both sides trade a lot of pieces on the d5 square. Black ends up with this pretty strong-looking queen, but now it's really, really messy, because white's king is super exposed in this position. I mean, it has almost no pawn cover, but at the same time, if this rook ends up coming down to the 7th rank, black's king might start feeling very uncomfortable as well. Black played queen c5 check, which is logical, because it wins a tempo. Bishop e3, also logical, because it wins a tempo. And now queen c6, takes, and queen to d2. So, yeah, position's just very, very messy now. Like I said, white wants to get the rook down to the 7th rank, maybe target the f7 pawn. So yeah, it's going to be a big mess. Queen c7 was played. Don't like this move because it walks right into rook d7. Queen to b8, very passive square for the queen. Probably much better was to go back to c6, where at least the queen is looking at white's king, while also protecting a lot of the same things, especially the b6 pawn. All right, queen f2 was played. This is a double attack, attacking this guy and this guy. So black defended against the mate threat, because queen takes f7 was mate. So rook f8. Now bishop takes b6, queen to c8, queen to d2, and white is a healthy pawn up. But again, because white's king is so open, nothing is really that clear so far. It's still anyone's game. So bishop f6 played, rook to d6, king g7. I mean, these moves are okay. No, neither side's making colossal blunders in this stage, though there are improvements probably on most moves. But it's a blitz game, so we're not going to spend too much time and attention here. So black's putting a lot of pawns on dark squares, which, yeah, it's not so good, especially the fact that now the 7th rank, because of these pawn pushes, is incredibly weak. So now if the rook ever returns to the 7th rank, this king's just going to get totally ripped open. Not to mention that now in a lot of bishop endgames even, like, it's going to be especially lost for black, because the kingside structure is fixed. White will play, like, imagine the queens and the rooks get swapped. These pawns on dark squares are going to be really, really weak. Not to mention that white's already got the extra pawn on the queen side. So this maneuver strategically is very dubious, the f6 g5 thing, but not super important because this all comes down to some tactics in a moment. Takes. Yeah, f5 was way too ambitious for black, because now their king is just as weak as white's. Bishop d8 was a really nice find. And the move actually is looking at this sort of idea. And also that if bishop takes, then the rook is coming behind And again, the rook on the 8th rank, queen on the 7th rank, is going to be a very powerful attacking combination. So yeah, bishop d8 is a really nice move to break in. g4 is a decent try. It's sacrificing a piece but trying to open up white's king. Unfortunately, there's just no continuation here that's good for black. So black will be able to take the pawn on h3 with check, but that's going to be the end of the attack. And that's basically what happens. And now after queen f1, black is probably just hoping somehow that white will blunder a checkmate on g2, but that's pretty much all they can do is hope. Maybe, you know, if they had several moves in a row, they would try to get like rook g2 somehow, but it's just not happening. Not to mention, of course, that even bishop takes rook is totally fine here. So anyway, let's quickly flip forward because we're almost at the critical moment, which is right here. And once again, white to play in checkmate in 3. If you solve it, make sure you make your comment on chessuniversity.com if that's something that interests you. Otherwise, just have fun solving the puzzle. And I will see everyone tomorrow. Thank you for watching.